Hello YouTube, this is Frugal. You know, one of my other passions is kayak fishing. I love that. Once a week I get away from all you lot, I get away from work and I go kayak fishing and I love it. But it's expensive. It costs quite a bit of money to get a good kayak and all the good fishing gear. So I was hoping that this YouTube payday I would be able to put all the money from the YouTube channel into my kayak. I was going to get a fishing sonar fitted. I was going to get what's called an anchor trolley to let me reposition the anchor. All sorts of wonderful things I was looking forward to doing. And YouTube payday was today, which coincidentally is the same day that Prepared version 3 came out. Now, and a lot of you are asking me, Frugal, you going to do impressions? Of course I am. So I went and spent all my YouTube money, well, pretty much all of it. I don't make that much. On buying Prepared version 3, so I can give you my first impressions. Let me give you the overall resounding conclusion right now. Those of you who are out there who are calling this 2.6, it's easy to do that. You know, looking at the release notes that I read out on my announcement video, you know, where I went through Lockheed Martin's release notes, it's easy to call this Prepared 2.6. Everything is a bug fix. Everything is this got fixed, that got fixed, this got undone, you know, this crash got prevented, and so on and so on. Very easy to say Prepared version 3 is version 2.6 in reality, and they shouldn't have charged a full price for it. Everybody that's saying that is completely wrong and has never ever used Prepared version 3. That's my conclusion. That's it. Should you go and buy this? Yes. Should you buy this right now? Maybe not, and I'll explain why through the course of this video. If you look at the history of Flight Simulator, look at the history of Microsoft Flight Simulator, you could realistically say that every version was a bug fix. Every version was an improvement on a previous version. So FSX or FS10 brought with it an upgraded graphics engine, better fidelity flight model, and so on, and so on, and so on. Over FS9, there was nothing new. What are you going to add to a new flight simulator? If you've got a flight simulator which already covers the entire planet, there's not a whole lot that you can add to it. You can't say, we've added a new air model, or we've added a new, maybe you could say new flight model. We've added a new, I don't know, geothermal model. Who knows? A flight simulator is a flight simulator is a flight simulator, and each subsequent version of a flight simulator iterates on what you had before and hopefully improves on it as well. That is the case with Prepared version 3. It is the natural evolution of the Prepared platform. Now, a lot of people have been saying, well, it's got bug fixes in it in Prepared version 3, which we should have had in version 2.5, but they're forgetting that the bugs that we had in Prepared 2.5 were also the bugs that we had in Prepared 1, because they were the same bugs that we had in Microsoft FSX, that were the same bugs that ultimately were in the underlying platform, Microsoft ESP. You know, these are bugs which have been inherited by Lockheed Martin, so the fact that they're even getting fixed is actually pretty cool. And I guess the number one most resounding, amazing, oh my god, this is worth the money bug that got fixed is memory management. Now, the reason you have vast problems, other than it being a 32-bit application which limits the amount of stuff you can hold in memory, the reason you have vast problems in a Microsoft-based flight simulator is the way that it handles loading and ultimately dumping or not data. So as I fly over this airport, I think that's Sanford down there. It might not be. I got lost. I was just cruising around looking at the scenery, actually. As you fly over an airport, it actually loads in that airport. So even though I'm at, in this case, 7,000 feet and can't see any detail down there at that airport at all, it would still, in the old sim, load in all of the data of that airfield. Now, if that's a complex third-party add-on, like something from Flightbeam or Flight Tampa or UK 2000, oops, you just loaded in a whole bunch of data, which is going to really take a huge chunk out of your virtual addressing space. And the next problem was that it would never really free it up. That is not the case with Prepared version 3. I haven't been able to totally prove or disprove that it does or does not loading things you can't see, but I have pretty much proven from the little time I've spent with this so far that it does dump it out, it does get rid of it. You don't have the ongoing problem that we have always had in Microsoft FSX and ESP and Prepared. We're doing a long-haul flight over complicated terrain, complex add-on scenery would cause your VAS to break. That does not exist anymore. You can have all your scenery installed, all your very, very complex scenery like OrbX, FTX Global, like Ultimate Terrain, like the UK 2000 airports, Flight Tampa, Flightbeam, and so on and so on. You can have all those installed, not have to worry about swapping them out, and do a round-the-world flight from A to B, covering much of them along the way, and you will not crash from an out-of-memory problem. That is huge. People have been saying, why didn't they do 64-bit? I agree with Robert Randazzo on this one. getting that sorted is probably a bigger win than 64-bit. All 64-bit does is, okay, it gives you a bit more performance because the processor can shift around more data because it's a wider addressing space, or whatever else. Bigger lumps of data can be shifted through memory. So you get some performance increase from that, and yes, I am oversimplifying it because I know I crashed, because I know there are not a lot of technical people watching this channel. That's the first thing. Second of all, 64-bit gives you the ability to access all available memory that you have in your computer. Great. But bad coding can still break memory limits even with a 64-bit application. Ask anybody that uses Sony Vegas, which I no longer use, by the way, for that very problem. So actually fixing core issues like VAS management, the way that scenery is loaded in and then dropped out, was actually far, far, far more important than doing a 64-bit version of the app. However, if you are holding out for a 64-bit version of the app, then rejoice, because this will give you everything a 64-bit version of the app will give you. For example, complete incompatibility with most of your add-ons, nothing will install, nothing will run, just like if it was a 64-bit version of the app. Now that's important. I know that you can install a lot of add-ons. You can tweak them, you can do some hacks, you can do some registry changes, you can modify the install paths and all sorts of stuff and get those add-ons that you've got installing without waiting for an updated installer. That would be a bad idea. Please don't do that. Well, actually, you can do that. If you want to go ahead and do that, you're not hurting anybody at all. Go ahead and have fun. But another huge change that's happened with Prepared version 3 is they've changed the way that add-ons install. From what I understand, from my cursory glance at a technical description of what's going on here, is that add-on producers like PMDG, like Aerosoft, A2A, and so on, are now required to actually put their stuff outside of the core sim. In the old days, we would install add-on aircraft into sim objects, for example. You'd install scenery into the scenery directory, and so on and so on. From what I can understand, from my cursory glance, and this could be completely inaccurate, but I don't think it is, from what I can understand, those add-ons now install somewhere completely outside the sim, and the reason for that is the thing you've all moaned about in the past. Every time Lockheed produces a significant update, you have to reinstall the whole sim to get the best results, thereby blowing away everything you've got installed. Well, if you have those things installed in separate locations, then you can update the core sim. You can update the core sim scenery library. You can update core sim objects, for example, without nuking everything the user has installed, which makes a lot of sense. So by all means, go ahead and hack all those installers you've got and get them working in Prepared version 3. You will have some success doing that. But bear in mind, as soon as Lockheed Martin release an update, and history shows us that they do that pretty soon after a major release, so maybe in the next week or two, you run the risk of nuking all that hard work. Just wait. All the major... hang on a minute, I've got to find the gear lever, and it's hard to do because I haven't really set track IR up properly. Oh my god, it's not working. Press the G key. All the major add-on producers, PMDG included, are currently updating their installers to support Prepared version 3. At the time I'm recording this, which is the day of release, I think PMDG are talking about releasing those new installers for the 777, 737, and so on tonight. So don't worry, the new installers are coming. Hi-Fi Simulation's already released a version 3 installer for Active Sky Next. The problem was their version 3 installer relied on a specific version 3, which wasn't the one that got released, so they ended up pulling down that installer real quick. Hopefully they'll put another one up fairly soon. So those are the couple of caveats out of the way, and actually that scenery and add-on installed thing I just mentioned, the fact that you really should wait for proper installers, is why I said at the beginning of this video, yes, you should get this, but probably not right now, because if you want to fly all your add-ons right now, you either need to do what I said and go and hack the installers or hack the registry keys or whatever else and jump through all sorts of hoops to get them running, and you'll have a grand old time if you do get them running, but you're going to have problems down the line. You probably will need to nuke them and try again. It's better to just wait. So given that a lot of publishers now are scrambling to get their V3 installers together, it makes a lot of sense for you too to wait before jumping in. However, if you do jump in, what do you get? Well, what you get is what feels like a completely new simulator. And I'm not just saying that, it really does feel completely new. Having spent my $200 on this that I was going to put into my kayaking and was really looking forward to doing that, I don't have buyer's remorse. And that's actually very, very important. You know, I bought this myself. It was my money. I did have that money allocated to go somewhere that was probably a lot more relaxing than making videos for YouTube, and I didn't, and I'm fine with that. It feels like a different sim. It feels like a different flight model. I didn't see any release notes saying there's a new flight model, so it's probably just a placebo. I'm probably just imagining it, but it feels a lot more fluid. Look, this is just one of the standard Coronado freebie aircraft. Look how fluid that is as I kick the rudders over and do all sorts of nasty stuff to this aircraft. Now come off the rudders, look at the aircraft settle as the airflow grabs the frame of the aircraft and forces it back into a somewhat stable profile. It feels a lot more fluid. The aircraft that I've been flying, which is this Coronado, what is this? Bonanza, feels a lot livelier than it used to. It just, everything feels different. Now, you saw at the start, I was messing around with the weather. They have upgraded the graphics significantly in some areas, and they've upgraded the performance. To that end, let me jump out of here and let me show you options. Now, I'm running Devil's Canyon 4770K with a GeForce NVIDIA GTX 980 with 4GB of RAM. That's what I've been using for quite a while now. Here are my display settings. Everybody asks, Frugal, what are your display settings? They are the same as they have always been. FXAA is on. Target frame rate is locked at 60. VSync is on. MSAA is at 8 samples, which is the maximum, by the way. Texture filtering is at the maximum. Texture resolution is at the maximum. I have GPU tessellation enabled. If we look at the scenery, everything is maximum. If we look at the lighting, okay, I mess around with the shadows. I don't go ultra high on the shadows. I only have 10 kilometers on terrain shadowcast, 10 kilometers on cloud shadowcast. That's just fine for me. Weather, pretty standard. I didn't mess with that. Traffic, I have off. You guys know all this, right? And I am getting about 60 frames. A little bit under right now. And I did notice a frame rate slowdown, which is odd because I record on a separate machine, as many of you know as well. So a little bit under 60 frames, but for this spec of machine, that's not bad. I know a lot of you, or a number of you, are now running SLI cards. I saw one guy on Facebook, I think he was bragging, saying his SLI configuration with his 2 GeForce Titans is now working properly. Good for him. And that's a key point. If you have really, really powerful hardware like that, like a Titan, or even 2 or 3 or 4 Titans in SLI, you are now going to make use of them. It does put a more significant load on the GPU than it ever used to. And in the past, the load that it put on the GPU was noticeably more than you'd get put on it by FSX. So kudos, everything's good there. The downside of all this though, all this graphical goodness I mentioned in the announcement, I saw Oculus Rift is core support. No, it's not. They might have put Oculus Rift support in there, it might be core in the engine, and that's all lovely and fine, but if you are using the current Oculus Rift drivers, which are approaching the version the general public are going to get next year, forget it. Because the current Oculus Rift drivers only give you direct mode, not extended mode, and when you boot up Prepared, it puts up a warning on the screen saying, I'm sorry, this software was compiled against an old, obsolete version of the Oculus Rift drivers. You're not going to be able to use Oculus Rift. So don't go buying this if you have Oculus Rift and you have the current drivers. You can, of course, buy it and use it if you have the older drivers, but realistically, why would you stick with what's about to be released or going to be released in a few months? Because that makes more sense. So what else have we got in here? Well, general all-round improvements in loading and performance and speed. So for example, if I go up to the world menu and we go to weather, you saw when I started this I was flying in, I think it was grey and rainy is what I was flying in. Let's go and change this to stormy weather, right? Stormy weather in Florida. Oh my god, look at that instant change. Absolutely instant. You got all the fading of the scenery here. By the way, look at my frame rate. It did take a hit there. It dropped about 10 frames, but who cares? It's still well over 35 frames per second. Everything is smooth as silk. I'm very happy. The residents of Florida are a little bit concerned that it's snowing, but okay. Let's go up to the world menu again. Let's change it to something a little bit maybe more impressive. What have we got here? Major thunderstorm. I thought that's what I just chose. I'm sure that's what I just chose. No, I didn't. I chose stormy weather. Let's go major thunderstorm. Instant. Back into the sim, look at the shadows from the clouds on the ground, it's lovely. See if we hear that thunder. I know that was a bug that they claimed to have fixed. Not hearing it. Oh, should be a delay. There's the delay. How lovely is that? Notice the bloom as well from the light peeking through those clouds. You now have control over bloom effects and how subtle or dramatic they are. If you go into the display settings, go into lighting, you can adjust the HDR lighting settings, and there are more settings in the actual prepared config file. You can change the exposure, for example, all sorts of lovely artsy stuff here. So I can make this really stupid bright if I want to, put the bloom all the way up here, make the saturation redonkulous. I have no idea what to reset those to when I'm done. Let's try it. Oh my god! Art Deco or what? That's hideous. But you get the idea, right? Post-processing. Something that we normally only see in top-of-the-line games, really. Post-processing for the win. You know, Project Cars, you can do stuff like that, for example. Let's put this down here. Let's put the brightness. Now, I did notice the sky was not as blue as it actually is here in Florida normally, so I'm going to put that down there. I'm going to put this down to about 2. And we're going to put the saturation down to about there. Let's see what that gives us. You can spend all day messing with that. That's looking nice. A little bit too bright, maybe. A little bit more contrast. Let's go and mess with that some more. Oh, look at that. Did you see? I shouldn't have stopped it at that point. Did you see that lightning burst? The bloom from that lightning burst was just... ouch. Ouch. That's better. A little bit more subtle. Let's see what we get when the lightning kicks in here. Notice how the aircraft's moving around in the airflow from the wind. Pretty cool stuff. Whoa. Bit of a gust of wind there. It just feels more fluid. Look, nice. Many of you know I'm a big fan of X-Plane's flight model. They use a very different method of flight modeling called blade element theory, which I feel is in general feels more natural. I don't know what they've done in Prepared. I don't even know if they have upgraded the flight model, but it just feels like they're getting closer to that, and it's a thing of amazing beautiness. Alright, now I don't have my control set up for slewing, but I'm going to put this in slew. I'm going to throw us up a couple of thousand feet. Hang on. So we are going to spin around a little bit. Sorry about that. It's like a flashback scene in a bad movie. Whoa! Alright, so here we are up a lot higher. Look at that scenery. I do not have Orbex FTS Global installed. This is all default scenery, except for Rex 4 Texture Direct did work without me having to do any nasty hacks. So Rex 4 Texture Direct textures, but this is standard prepared scenery. No Orbex FTS Global, and it looks fine. I always thought, realistically, hang on, let me go and mess with this. I'm having all sorts of problems here with this aircraft's engine now at this altitude, because we shouldn't be this high, nearly 20,000 feet. I always thought, in Prepared at least, that installing something like Orbex FTS Global gives you a performance hit. I might stick with default. This doesn't look too shabby at all. Let's go and change all sorts of other stuff here. So I'm going to trim this aircraft. We are likely to overstress it because I'm doing stupid, crazy stuff, but I want to show you as much as I possibly can. Obviously, you can't get a feel for how it flies, but I can give you a good view of how it looks. So I'm going to set the time. When we started this video, that was dawn. I'm going to put it to dusk. So it's going to do its loading thing. In general, the loading is pretty fast, but I wouldn't really hold too much value in the speed of loading at this point. I don't have anything installed. And typically, as soon as you start installing a bunch of stuff, notably scenery and aircraft, because the aircraft load in their DLLs, ooh, that's pretty, then things get a lot heavier on the loads. I was going to change the weather, but that actually looks amazing. Alright, let's really drop the RPM, drop the prop. Alright, and let's see if we can move through a cloud here without dying. See if we see some of those lovely volumetric cloud effects. I'm also using Rex Soft Clouds. That installed without a problem. No problem at all. Just had to tell it the directory and away we went. But in general, kids, I wouldn't recommend doing that. Wait for the proper installers. But anyway, and I had read someone somewhere online saying the clouds were rotating. I'm not seeing that. That nasty old cloud rotating bug is not coming back. Which is a good thing. Look at that. Beautiful, lovely, volumetric cloudiness. I feel as well the general graphical quality has improved considerably from the old one. It just, I hate to keep using that word feel, but it just feels better. It really does feel better. I think it looks like a new sim and feels like it as well. Not 2.6, that's a dumb thing to say. Okay, let's change some other stuff here. Let's go to weather once again. Let's change this to, I tried Active Sky Next, by the way, the installer, and like I said, it just doesn't work. Let's change this to, what is a cold front? Ooh, deep blue skies and those scary clouds that say, bruh. Look at that. How lovely. Wonderful. Anyway, where I'm flying right now, Sanford, Orlando, is not the most scenic place in the world. Let's see how this copes with loading in something else. So let's go to airport. Where should we go? Let's go to Innsbruck. So Lowy will be on the active runway. I'm going to slew it up in the air again just so you can see the scenery. And we'll see how we do over there. But I also want you to see how long it takes to change the part of the world that you're in. We went from the east coast, southeast coast of America now to Europe with all its different textures and dramatically different contours on the ground and stuff like that. It doesn't take too long, but that is likely to change when you install a bunch of add-ons. Come on now, 83%. Lovely, look at that. Okay, let's put a mixture up, put the prop up. We could just take off right now. I probably should, but I'm not going to. I'm going to look down here and turn the lights on. Come on, lights, hello. Why are you not working for me? There we go. I'm going to hit the magic slew button. And up we go. To about 8,000. There we are. Alright, that's going to hurt. Oh my goodness! See how smooth and fluid that was? That's a thing of beautiful things. Okay, let's stabilize this aircraft, come off the power so we don't overspeed, and obviously change the time of day so we can see what's going on in the world around us. And let's take a look at the scenery here. Time and season. So we're going to set the season, the time. No, the season's good. Actually, no, it's not. Let's make the season winter. And let's make the day, the time, daytime. In fact, dawn would be lovely. The dawn light hitting those snow-capped mountains in the winter is should be breathtaking. Should be absolutely awe-inspiring. We'll see. We'll see as it loads in. What else have I found with this? Actually, not much. EasyDock wasn't too hard to run, and I'm awful with remembering things. I'm sorry. There was a chap who I said to on Facebook, and if I've forgotten your name, so I apologize. There's a chap who I spoke to on Facebook who said what he did is some of what I'd already done. I'd copied the section from exe.xml across from FSX, which loaded up the EasyDock add-on. That was all great, but I didn't have the exterior view. So what he did was he went into his app data roaming Lockheed Martin, copied the prepared3 directory into a prepared v2 directory and just ran the easy.config config, and it created a cameras file and everything else, which he then copied into his app data roaming Lockheed Martin prepared version 3 directory, and everything worked. So I did the same thing and everything worked. So I have EasyDock running. That's really it. So soft clouds, Rex4 texture direct, EasyDock, and that's it. I'm loving this. I don't have all my settings fully there in terms of EasyDock and Track IR, but in general this is so nice. This is so nice. It's a nice, at long last, stable sim, which no matter what I've been trying to do to it, and I've been jumping this aircraft all over the world prior to recording this, so putting it in Europe, putting it in America, putting it in Africa, putting it in the Arctic. You know, each of those things in the old sim would take up virtual addressing space, they would take up VAS, because the code to clean out VAS when you are no longer in an area didn't really work too well. Nothing I have done could break this. It's great. I'm very much looking forward to trying some of the complex airliners when they launch, like the PMDG ones in particular. I was actually working on a fully loaded video in Prepared on Monday, and it all went horribly wrong, and I was doing it again yesterday, and then the announcement came out about Prepared version 3, so I'm holding off on that. I'm going to see if I can get a fully loaded in the PMDG 737 NGX in Prepared version 3, because one of the problems I had on Monday flying from Gatwick to Verona with everything maxed out and some very complex scenery as well, like UK 2000's Gatwick. Well, let's coordinate this a little bit. UK 2000's Gatwick and so on was out of memory errors. So I'm looking forward to making that flight at these gorgeous, nice, high, incredibly smooth and sexy frame rates without the out of memory. Notice the flashing in the cockpit? That's the beacons reflecting inside the cockpit. Love it. What else can we do? What else can I show you people? So we've done time and season, we've done all that. We've done weather. You've seen pretty much everything the weather can do. I've showed you the options. The options, they're nice. They're really nice. Nothing much has changed in these general options, for example. Nothing different in there. Nothing in sound, in flight path, failures, controls. This is all as it has always been. Nothing new to see here. And that's just fine. Views, nothing much here. I've never tried out traffic control view, actually, even in the old zone. I'm not going to do it now because I don't know what it does. Realism settings is exactly the same. Let's go select vehicle. There are some new vehicles, obviously. There's the Batavia Black Hawk, which I've not flown, and I have a yoke, the GoFlight yoke strapped to my desk right now, so loading that up would not be a good idea. But there it is. I'm actually looking forward to flying that. I like the Black Hawk a great deal. Not for today. What else? Oh, yes, there is something else. And I can't show it to you, actually. Maybe I can. Where's the runway? I found a bug. I'm calling it the frugal bug because this only came out today, and as far as I know, I'm the first person to find it. So it is officially the frugal landing lights bug. I don't know where the runway is. Okay, I'm going to make this nighttime. Let's turn the lights on again. Lights, Aziz. There we go. Time and season. Let's make this crazy nighttime. It is winter. We're all good. I found that old bug that we used to hate, which was actually blamed on the NVIDIA drivers, is back. In that if you get just the right angle on approach to an airport, all the lights go out. For no reason. If you change the angle, they come back on. The challenge we're going to have here, especially with these clouds, is finding the damn airport. Hang on. I'm not paying any attention to where I am, and there's somebody somewhere right now, frantically typing in the comment box, "Frugal, if you had just turned on the GPS system..." Yeah, whatever. You know what? Let's get rid of the weather here. Let's make it a clear skies day. So I can see... There it is. Perfect. Alright. Now, I did have some weather when I experienced this bug. Maybe that played into it. Let's find out. I'm not going to land, but I am going to get down close to it. And we'll see. You can see right now all the lights are on at the airport. You can see the VASI lights are on. You can see the lights either side of the runway are on. Everything looks exactly as it should look at night time at a busy airport. And that's the next thing actually I want to try. We'll put this... Actually, we'll leave it here, and I'll just turn the traffic up. I want to see how this performs with traffic, which is not something I've done. I never normally put traffic into my videos because of the frame rate hit. That's why I don't do that. It would be interesting to see if that frame rate hit is as noticeable. I was a little disappointed with the night lighting at the airports in this version of Prepared. I don't know why. I just kind of expected it to pop out of me as, oh my god, I'm awesome. The night lighting in X-Plane, for example, is absolutely phenomenal. And I was kind of hoping Prepared had got closer to that, and unfortunately it's not. But even so, it's not bad, really. Alright, so there's our runway that we are not going to land at. And because we are not going to land at it, we're going to be slightly too high as we pass over the runway, which is the angle that I had when I found this before. Notice as we line up here, you can see the lights starting to make their way down the runway. Look at that, beautiful. So that's cool, but you can already see now lights popping in. Those lights would already have been there. They would already have been visible. They wouldn't just magically appear because Pete is a quarter of a mile away from the runway. It's a little strange. Anyway, let's come on down here. They're not going to vanish on me now. They're just going to stay right there, aren't they? The frugal bug is a tricky bug to replicate, but you can replicate it. Just not today. I had an approach just like that at Sanford, and all the lights just went out. That's the other thing as well. Look at that flickering texture. I used to see a lot of that in Prepared. I'm seeing very little of it in Prepared version 3. Okay, I said I wanted to try really messing things up, which involves traffic. So let's go ahead and put in a reasonable amount is not 100%. Okay, that's not cool. A reasonable amount is about 30% and about 10%. We don't need airport vehicles. Let's do that. Let's see how long it takes to load. Nice and quick. And a little bit of a stutter there. Let's go. My frame rate's 45, 50, 55. Not bad. There is other aircraft here now. If we turn back towards that runway, we might even be able to see some of them. Let's try and trim this. We'll see if we can see any of them taxiing and doing what aircraft do at runways. I'm trying to coordinate this turn, but I can't. Like I said, guys, I'm not trying to show anybody how to fly right now. That's nice. That's a nice effect. Didn't see that before. Interesting. Turn the traffic up. Where's the traffic? Kinda hoped to see aircraft down there. Let's turn it up more. Up you get. Let's put you up to about 70 then, which is a crazy number. And put you up to about 50. How curious is that? Alright, bear that in mind. I would have expected at Innsbruck, putting the numbers up there to see traffic. I haven't had a big frame rate hit. I have had a hit, but nothing like we used to experience, so that's good. Losing my voice. Anyway, so in summary, I'm going to say what I said at the beginning. This is not version 2.6. As is always the case with flight simulators, the new version is an iterative evolution of what has come before, and that is the case with Prepared version 3. Of course it fixes bugs. Of course it makes problems that we had go away. That's what new versions do, not just bug fixes. And by the way, the bug fixes that are in here are typically bug fixes for legacy problems that we have had now for going on 10 years. And now, hallelujah, they're fixed. So I don't think anybody can blame, realistically, logically and sensibly, can blame Lockheed Martin for not fixing things like out-of-memory errors in 2.5. They've always been there. So the fact that they're fixed now is actually, to my mind, quite a big feature. So it is an iterative evolution of what has come before, as flight sims are. It feels better, it looks better, it performs better. These are all the things that we would traditionally hope for from a new version of a Microsoft Sim. Moving from 9 to 10, we saw it looked better, it looked more beautiful. The environment you flew in seemed more natural and fluid. That is the case with this. So I do believe Prepared version 3 completely earns its version 3 moniker. Should you buy it? If you are dedicated and really passionate about your Sims, you know, $200 is a vast amount of money to spend on a piece of software. Those of us who make YouTube videos have done that a few times though with our editing suites and stuff like that, but even so, it's a lot of money to spend. So weigh up whether you really want to spend that kind of money. I'm not going to get into the whole licensing debate. You know your own conscience. I don't want to get involved. But it's a lot of money. I do believe though, if you're passionate about Sims, yes, you probably do really want to get Prepared version 3. Should you get it now? You can afford to wait. You can afford to wait maybe a month, see how many companies step up with their new installers. Right now, if you were to get it, you're going to be jumping through some hoops, doing some technical jiggery-pokery to get everything to work, which for some people is just fine. But if you do all that jiggery-pokery, you are making an investment in something which ultimately Lockheed Martin can and probably will destroy with a patch. So it's worth waiting before diving in. Anyway, as always, my name is Frugal. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Sensible comments about what you think. And until next time, I'll see you very soon.